Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Hello, Bat family, and welcome to this episode, number 188 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all of the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at BatPodNetwork. I'm Garret Grev. You can follow me on Twitter at GarrettWado and email me topics, suggestions, feedback at garrett.grev@batman-on-film.com. Thank you for listening. Well, listeners, here we are. It's September. We are post Batman Day 2021. We haven't been back in the Batcave for a couple weeks here, but we're down here. Of course, the stalactites and the stalagmites are dripping. It's very eerie. It's very moody, but I got a couple good buddies with me, so it's not scary. The first voice you already heard, of course, you know him. He is a BOF senior contributor. He is the third Super Mario brother. He is the king of the LOL, and he is the sure-shotted sheriff himself, Mr. Ryan Haas. Ryan, welcome back to the show, buddy.
Yo, glad to be here. This is great to be in the stalactite-mite-filled, bat-mite-filled bat cave.
Yeah, guano. Gotta be
I don't
careful.
like that.
Very slippery. Very slippery. Could be sticky. I don't have a lot of experience with guano, to be perfectly honest, so it could go either way. Well, Ryan, glad to have you on the show again. We got a good one coming up, and we've got a good one coming up because we've got the man who gets to review the title that is our feature topic for the night. He is a BOF contributor. He is he's got a learner's permit when it comes to the license to kill. He's working on it.
He's got the martini, though.
He's got the martini tonight.
Oh.
He's an amazing Spider fan, and he's the guy with more toys than my kid. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Javi Trujillo. Javi, welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Garrett. Thanks for having me, man.
Well, listeners, a tasty treat for you all tonight is we are going back and we're going to do a catch-up episode. Back on February 25th, 2021, believe it or not, we covered the first. Yeah, wow. You know, it's been that long. I should say the date of this recording is September 22nd, 2021. Yeah, and we're going way back to the Wayback Machine where we last left this title, Batman, Catwoman. And that was back in February, end of February 25th. And it was Batman on Film episode 179, which means I haven't put out that many shows in the last few months either, because we were at a pretty good clip in the fall and spring. But yeah, this is Tom King and Clay Mann's 12 parts. Well, we got another artist that's joining the fray to talk about this time. 12 issue series focused on Batman, Catwoman, and a whole lot of Joker too. So we're going to do a issue catch up show focusing on issues 4, 5, 6, and 7. Javi, we talked about 1 through 3 last time. I said when you were on last time, we'll get you back on after we get another 3 issues in, but there's been some production and release schedule snafus. I didn't even realize 7 was out until we started talking about doing this episode. That's how goofy it's been. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we never get into a Batman on Film podcast without first talking about the news.
3, 2, 1.
Cue music. Cue Becky.
Good evening.
All right, listeners, had mentioned this past Saturday was Batman Day 2021. Joyous occasion as always. Mr. Ryan Haas, did you do anything to celebrate the day of our Dark Knight here?
Yeah, I did a few things. I did go out and most people that listen to this show that know of me know that I have a child and a girl, and she loves the Batman, of course. And we went out and got the Spin Master RC Batmobile that like is like all terrain, and it goes on ground and apparently it drives on water. We didn't test it on water, but we went out and got that thing, and we just had a blast driving it around. She already had figures that fit into it, so she was like making up stories and driving it around and making it stop and taking Batman out and catching villains and stuff. So we did that, which was just amazing.
That's great. Where'd you get that bad boy?
Target. It's those are at Target. Yeah,
nice.
It was good. And let's see. So we did that, and the other cool thing that this was kind of a low key Batman day, but they did do an awful lot of things. Mostly it's all digital these days, but the big thing was for me was Batman the Audio Adventures.
Ooh,
that
you're jumping ahead on my list. I was going to talk about this. This is good though, so I wanted to get here.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me because I've been looking forward to that, and at some point in time I got confused because it seems like there's actually two major Batman audio podcast things coming out. Like there's the other one that David Goyer's doing, but this is a different one where we've got Jeffrey Wright playing Batman, and my buddy, my pal John Leguizamo as the Riddler. So this was really cool, and yeah, and there's like 10 episodes. They all dropped on HBO Max, which is weird because it's a HBO Max exclusive podcast thing, but their app is not set up well to listen to podcasts. It's very strange. But
is it one of those things where you can't lock your screen or switch over to a different app or anything like that?
So like if
YouTube's like that for me on my
YouTube
phone.
is like that. They lock you out, but like I was able on my iPhone to open it up in HBO Max and work around it and get it to play like with it locked. So it's weird, but you can get it to work. It's because it's like a video instead of an audio thing.
Sure.
But if you don't have HBO Max, they also have it on regular podcatchers, but they're just releasing episodes more slowly, like 2 a week or something. So right now, like the first 2 episodes are up for free. So eventually they'll get there. But yeah, it's fun. It's the way it's set up. I didn't know what to expect. It's like a radio drama, but it's all segmented as if you're listening to the radio like in Gotham City. So there will be like jingles and radio stations, and like the stations will change, and you'll get like stories of Batman or Catwoman or little vignettes with other characters, but then like a vignette will come in and be like, hey, like it's the AC people, you thought it's in the middle of the summer, but you might need a tune-up because Mr. Freeze broke out last year, and like,
Oh, really? Like in-universe ads?
In-universe ads and stuff. Or just
funny.
It's like, there's a birthday clown. He's not affiliated with the Joker. Please give him money. It's hard to be a birthday clown in Gotham. Like, and it's cool. Like that, and that stuff grows on you, and it's like a running gag. Like every episode, like these things will keep coming up. So
he's not a murder clown.
Yeah.
Javi, are you listening to this too, Javi?
Yeah, I did the first episode and a half on Saturday, and then was cleaning the house on Sunday and got up to like episode 6.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite way.
Rosario Dawson as Catwoman crushes it.
I was just going to ask you this. Is this the one that I read about that has like a really good comedic cast, like a bunch of like Saturday Night Live?
It's a lot of SNL people doing.
Okay. And is it funny? Like,
voices.
is it meant to be a comedy, or is it just a little bit like not ultra dark?
It's a little 66, but with like a darker sense of humor.
Man, I'm gonna love it.
Part radio show. So
you can tell by the questions I'm asking, I have not watched this yet. So I am intrigued because Goyer is doing one that's much more like Goyer. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Javi, anything else for you on Batman Day? Bringing it back to Batman Day 2021.
Batman Day Eve. I was lucky enough walking into Target. I found the Batman the Animated Series grapnel replica launcher.
Oh, nice.
It was the only one on the shelf, so I grabbed it immediately because I've looked at Walmart before and haven't found one. So
don't mess with it or it'll break on you like it broke on me.
Yeah, and
Lame.
that was the problem. It takes LR or L1 batteries, which I
You can't
just
you
assumed
gotta,
it would have been. Yeah. So it took me a day or two before I could actually get it to work. But that was Friday. Saturday was, I had a lot of things going on, but went to the comic shop, got the 3 free issues, picked up Batman 89 #2, got the hardcover for the World. Went on Amazon, got a new Batman mug because mine broke like 2 days before.
I saw you shared a picture of that
Yeah.
on Twitter. I was like, that's heartbreak right there.
Yeah, so this one kind of has the same art, but it's double the size, which I was not aware of when I bought it. So,
Well, happy
Yeah.
caffeination for you, Javi.
so
you
I got
know,
a lot of coffee in the morning now. But we did all that. We watched the show. The kids wanted to watch an episode with lunch, so they picked, and they're teenagers now, mind you. They picked Brave and the Bold: Mayhem of the Music Meister as their
Very nice.
episode to watch, because
Master.
we had the soundtrack and we used to listen to it all the time when they were going to elementary school. So it was weird to watch the show again and see the actual animation instead of just hearing it in the car. But that was pretty much the extent of our Batman day. Just
Yeah, it was a laid back one for me too. We really didn't do anything, you know, in years past. I've gone to the comic book shop. I've shared this on the show before. Captain Jack's Comics, which was my local comic book place, closed down a couple of years ago, even right before the pandemic, unfortunately. So it was a digital and what do we have, you know, already in the house day. My wife was at work, so I had our boys, and they love Batman and Robin. They think Batman and Robin,
Nice.
the movie, is like awesome.
My
They
kids
have
loved it too when they were younger.
They have no clue that it's campy. They have no clue that it's, you know, production values are fine, but everything else is really not very good, in my opinion. They have no idea that it's like a perverted version of the 66 show. Like, they don't get the innuendos, which, like, watching it, you know, I've watched it multiple times with them as an adult and obviously have over the years, but you know, I'm always kind of like side-eyeing the oldest one. Like, when's he going to get this thing's kind of pervy? And thankfully he hasn't yet, but they feel so cool because they feel like they're getting to watch one. They know it's PG-13, which if you don't get the jokes, there's really no reason for it to be PG-13. It's not very violent. Nobody dies, you know,
Right. There's no blood.
right.
Yeah.
There's no blood. It's not gory. And if you're too young to get the innuendo, there's really nothing that makes it PG-13. But the older two think they're super cool that they can watch a movie for teenagers. And and two, they also think like, oh, it's a live action Batman, because I've said this before, like, I'm probably overly cautious. My wife's even more cautious than I am. So they haven't seen any other live action Batman stuff besides Batman 66, which they like a lot, but this just feels newer and there's, like, you know, special effects and stuff. So we watched that, and they wanted to wear some Batman t-shirts, so we got dressed up a little bit. But yeah, no books or anything like that for me this year. It's, you know, ramped down from years past. Hopefully in 2022 we can, you know, find stores, and maybe some new comic book stores will pop up around me by then and now. Otherwise, I'll just drive 45 minutes or something next year. Well, the other thing, Batman Day, we got a gift, guys. I think we talked about this. I know you both saw it. It was a musical gift. And what I'm referring to, of course, is Matt Reeves and Michael. Giacchino. I was going to say it. I should have just said it because I had it right. You know, I always think like, oh man, you make fun of Peter when he says things wrong. And if you say this wrong, he's going to let you know.
He doesn't say things wrong. He says things like it beyond wrong, like just alternative,
like just extra,
not even close.
Extra syllables, like what's the Tamanzi? Like, you know, like Giacchino, I think that's fair game, right? You can mess that up, but like Tamanzi, come on, man. Anyway, so Matt Reeves, the director, of course, of 2022's The Batman, and Michael Giacchino, the composer of that film, gave us a sneak peek at the score, and I can't wait to tell you what I thought. So I'm going to go first. Man, did this thing sound like Batman? It didn't. It didn't immediately. Like, it wasn't derivative. No. It wasn't copying anything. No. But when I heard it, I'm like, holy crap, that's a Batman score right there. Like
Yeah.
this sounds like a Batman movie should sound.
Yeah.
And I was blown away. I saw some people say they were getting some like Mask of the Phantasm or animated series vibes. I don't even know that I could be that like.
I think that's more genre,
Right?
Yeah, the genre speaking to it, but it doesn't sound
DNA's in
generic.
there.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be great. Like if you didn't, if you would have just presented that music to me and told me like, guess what this is from, I would be like, Batman,
That's a Batman
like because
movie.
it sounds like Batman, which is great because I don't think you would necessarily could have said that right off the bat for. I'm sorry,
Yeah, gotcha.
I hate it, but I don't think you necessarily would have said that for some of the Justice League stuff or the BVS stuff or even the Dark Knight trilogy stuff. Like some specific things, yeah, but like those were really good and tailored for those interpretations. But you hear this thing and you're just like, oh, that's Batman.
Yeah, I'm just going through Zimmer's in my head, and yeah, not right away. I think now in 2005, I think that was actually something that I walked away saying like, man, I missed that Elfman score. Everything else was superb, but the score didn't quite fit. And then over the years, it's like, it really grows on you.
Yeah.
But like A Beautiful Lie or something like that. Great piece of music does not like feel like Batman to me.
Well, Zimmer is not one known for his melodies. It's more about the percussion and the
droning
loud noises for him. So,
I'm excited to see
harmonies.
how this gets incorporated into the film. I mean, they have this one. I mean, it's just another variation on the driving theme that we've heard so far, but it sounds the most grand and epic version of that we've heard so far. So I'm just hoping that like it builds the whole movie and it sounds more complete, more Batman-ish, as you go. So it'll be cool.
One thing I was really excited about was when I listened to it, I'm like, oh man, this is like orchestral and sort of like feels like a Batman piece. Like this was written for a Batman movie. And then like, as I was listening to it, just there was a split second in my head. I was like, yeah, but where's the Nirvana thing that he was teasing before? And then it sort of like comes way back down. It's like, and you hear that like, dun, dun, dun. I can't do it right now, but like it was still there. So it's like, which tells me I should expect, and I don't like to, build things up in my head too much, that this thing really swells and can get bombastic and then can like, kind of come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So like, man, that's great. That's a level of, dynamic storytelling through music that, I'm clearly hyped, but I think audiences will latch into.
And Giacchino's really good at that. He's kind of like, he definitely is a chameleon of a composer. He's got his own style for sure, but he's very good at matching directors' tones and visions and things like that. So, and he's collaborated. He I think he's worked with Matt Reeves before, right? So like on some of the Planet of the Apes stuff.
Yeah, they're pals.
He's just a diverse composer. Like to Ryan's point, I mean, he melds with whatever genre he's presented with. And I've never heard a bad score from him, be it The Incredibles, which sounds different than Ratatouille, which is different than Star Trek, which is different
Spider-Man.
than Rogue One, which is different than Spider-Man.
Really good point.
Like, I mean, he's just all over the place and on different sides of the fence. And like Ryan was saying, everything sounds like him, but it sounds like what it should be for whatever genre you're watching.
That is such a good point. And I think, when you think about like the masters of the movie score industry, John Williams sounds like John Williams, whether he's doing Jurassic Park or Star Wars or E.T. or, insert John Williams score. Elfman sounds like Elfman, like all the time. He's always Elfman. I mean, that's one of the things that, not to go down the Justice League rabbit hole, but like I really, really enjoy the 2017 theatrical version. I talk about it all the time and I mean it. I'm not just trolling. I'm not just trying to like, rub sand in the eyes of other fans that like something else more. I really enjoy that movie, but Elfman's score feels too Elfman-y in different parts of it for me. Giacchino, it's not that he doesn't have an identity. It's just that he seems to be very versatile. And I'm not here to like poo-poo Elfman and John Williams, by any means, but they don't, Giacchino has this sort of like malleability that you don't always get
Right.
from the the big brash sort of highly identifiable score master. So
And
I'm excited. Well, hopefully they give us a little bit more. It's one of those things where I'm always so torn. We're only like 5 months away. Like, do you tease us with little bits and pieces more between now and the release, or do you just say, I'll see it?
Well,
when
we're
I
gonna get a big dump at Fandom.
Oh, for sure. That is definitely the case. And we'll make sure we have you covered on all the Fandom news with multiple. I'm sure there'll be social hours and satellite shows and podcasts galore for that.
Straight out of Fandom.
Straight out of Fandom and the
Everybody
Fandom,
loves Fandom.
Fandom book club. And
Exactly.
all our pals. They
Fandom
have you
Lounge.
covered, man. The Bat Boys have
Yeah.
you covered. Well,
The Italian Fandom Coalition.
yeah, Italian Spidey. Well, we're going to get you covered, listeners. We know why you're really here, right? The news is good. The main topic's always fine. You're here for the number one bat-related trivia game.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
All right, listeners, participants, you know the rules, but just like Stan Lee said, every comic book could be someone's first comic book. Everyone's, first, what are you? Could be somebody's first, what are you? This is the bat-related trivia game where I give you 3 clues that are all sort of your standard clue type difficult. They're not giveaways. You can build on them if you want, but you might get one that really rings a chord and you can answer right away. And then that 4th clue is the giveaway clue. Just about anybody who is learned in the arts of the bat should be able to answer this question. Now, listeners, the participants and I are doing this also on video. You don't get to see that, but they're here. They are writing down their answers in front of me, and they will show them to me. First, they raise their hand when they believe they have the right answer, and then they show them to me at the end. But we're all on the Bat Honor System, and you trust us because we trust you, and we're all a bunch of good dudes, and not dudettes tonight, but sometimes. The earlier you can answer these questions, the more back credit you get. It's like that the was it MasterCard or American Express? Was it Visa? Batman and Robin, I just mentioned it, where
It was
the
a forever goth card.
it was
I
Goth
think.
Corp.
there
wasn't
you
it?
go. It wasn't even real. That of all the
Yeah.
tie-ins that movie had, you think they missed that? That's the most credit you get. That's like the black card. Then it's like platinum, gold, whatever. The goal is to answer it quickly. But you get to hear all the clues because we want you playing along at home. Gentlemen, are you ready for this?
No.
All
But we
right.
got to do it anyways.
Just to let you know, so everybody starts out with the same information. We are going to be talking about a comic book character tonight. Let's begin. Clue number 1. This character was first introduced in a major crossover storyline in 1996. What are you? I have no hands up. I have some puzzled faces. Everybody's trying to remember what storylines were big in 96, I'm sure. All right, clue number 2. This character's secret identity is seen as a superficial playboy artist who lives off his family's personal fortune and the profits of the sales of his paintings. What are you? A lot of puzzlement. No hands up. We will progress to clue number 3. This character's abilities include superhuman healing, strength, senses, stamina, razor-sharp claws, and the mastery of martial arts, acrobatics, criminology, and escape artistry. What are you? This is about the time in the game when I realized I picked too hard of a character or subject for what are you? This is the giveaway, guys. It's for all the marbles. You can have the maxed out credit card. The first one to get their hands up is going to get it. I feel like you can on this one. Clue number 4. This character is a combination of 2 incredibly popular characters from 2 different publishers. What are you? Wheels are spinning. Oh, Javi's got a hand up first. Javi's writing down his answer. Ryan
Is it
feels
Dark
like he's
Claw?
it is Dark Claw from the
Okay.
Amalgam
From Amalgam.
crossover
That-
storyline between DC and Marvel. Javi, you got it. You got it.
Barely.
Well, let's be clear. Dark Claw, very hot ticket in the mid 90s, hasn't had a lot of work in the last call it 25 years.
What, one issue? Like,
yeah.
Oh, he had two, because
He had
there was
two.
the second one where they did like a BTAS version, like Legends of the Dark Claw.
Legends
or
of the
something.
Dark Claw. Okay.
Yeah.
And he lived on a number of posters and pinup arts, and I think the Amalgam had a book release with different artists' takes on the character. I wanted to include that one just because I was talking about it with Lauer a while ago, and he had never heard of Amalgam. I'm like, you remember like DC versus Marvel in the 90s? Like, no. I'm like, do you remember?
He was like,
Didn't happen.
Yeah,
lying to me.
Indiana. We never even had that in Indiana.
Is it
Like-
on DC Universe Infinite? Because if it's
I doubt
not,
it.
then he wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a
Is
good
it on
point.
Hoopla? No.
I bet you can get it on Hoopla. I bet you can get it
All
on
I remember
Hoopla.
about the Amalgam is that, I mean, our grocery stores they still exist. So still exist. There is a big grocery store chain. When I grew up, we had Ingles in town, and Ingles had a good comic book section, a decent one. Like you could go in and they were organized, and you could go in every month and there would be new issues there. So all I remember about Amalgam is going in next to Batman one month was this like, hey, is that Batman? Oh, that's not Batman. What is that? Amalgam?
What is that guy?
Amalgam. You know, I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, Dark Claw.
That was
looks-
also like
Just trying to trick me. It looks like Batman. That's all I
like
remember about it. I never got it.
Pre-teen, early teen, it was the same thing. I'm like, how do you Amalgam?
I spent so much money on those issues. It's not even funny.
I've got them someplace. I've got them in a box. They're probably in my closet.
Doctor Strange Fate and Spider-Boy.
Spider-Boy Javi. I was almost going to do Spider-Boy for you because of your Spider-Man fandom, but it just wasn't Bat adjacent enough.
Yeah.
So I went with
That's
Dark Claw.
fair. Yeah.
Listeners, I hope some of you also got that. And this wasn't just a total stinker. I don't want to crash the ratings of this hot show, but thank you for always, playing, gentlemen. And then for listeners coming along into the Wayback Machine to 1996's cash grab crossover between DC and Marvel.
Pre-BOF.
It is. Yeah. Older than BOF. How about that? Anyway, that was What Are You? And now for the main event.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Ready to move out.
All right, listeners, I had mentioned this earlier, way back in February, beginning of the year when 2021 was young and we thought the world would be back to normal by now. We talked about Batman, Catwoman issues 1 through 3 on episode 179. Go back, check it out. We had a really good time. I think we talked about Superman and Lois. Very new at the time. We talked about that on the same episode. You know, it's been some time and we had some delays between issues. We are now 4 issues further along. We'll come back and ask Javi to join us. Javi, of course, is the reviewer for this title on batmanonfilm.com. You can check out his reviews written on the website where he's going to break down every single issue for you. We're probably not going to get into every single issue. We're going to give you an overview of what's been going on in the last 4 issues, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we think's going on. How does this whole thing fit into continuity if it does at all, or maybe what kind of mindset do you need to be to understand it? Javi, we're 4 issues further along in this story, so we're like 7 of 12. Give me at the very highest level, from your reviewer point of view, what are you feeling with this? Is it a maxi series at 12 issues? It's not a mini maxi series.
I'd say it's a maxi at this point. In some ways, I mean, Batman sells titles. I mean, that's why there's a different Batman book every week. But really, at this point, we're issue 7. It really should be called like Catwoman, Shadow of the Bat, or something like that, because this is Selina Kyle's story through and through, especially with the fact that with the 3 different time periods that we're in, Bruce is dead in the future. So that's 1/3 of the book, no Batman. And it's really just dealing with Selina and how she deals with her own personal duality. Is she a good person that does bad things, or is she a bad person that occasionally does good things? And she just rides that line because she's got obviously she's got her relationship with Batman, which we know they get married at some point in the future. But there's also something going on with Joker, and maybe it's platonic, maybe it isn't. They kind of seem to hint that maybe there's something else there, but she definitely feels like a loyalty to these two very different characters. And while the Phantasm's there, I mean, the real focus is Selina.
Yeah, and Phantasm being back in this title was a big thing. Really showing up. And this isn't mainstream continuity. This is a DC Black Label book, of course. I should have mentioned that early on. But that sort of made pretty big headlines. We hadn't seen Phantasm in print in quite some time, if at all, since realistically was there a comic adaptation of Mask of the Phantasm? I was about to say.
Yeah, and then there was a Batman Adventures annual, I think, that was like a quasi sequel to Mask of the Phantasm. So
my clamshell VHS contained a mini adaptation of Mask of the Phantasm, and then, like Haas was saying, there was an annual. I think it was the second annual.
Something like that. I think it was Batman and Robin Adventures, the second series annual.
Yeah, that's right. She was back for that one, but it'd been quite.
But
some
she
time,
hadn't been in like normal, regular, DC.
Right.
Which is funny because they sold this series that this is her first appearance in DC continuity, and then by the time this book came out, it's Black Label.
Right. And 11 months sort of passed between the time it was going to launch and was supposed to be the continuation of what Tom King was doing when he was on the flagship Batman book, and morphed into this other thing. And, Tynion went and did, his own thing. And so great setup, Javi. One of the things I wanted to talk about, and we've sort of already answered some of this. In my mind, you've been living with this thing month and month, and I've kind of caught up in spurts, gone back, reread, caught up in spurts, gone back and reread. In my mind, this universe of stories that we're reading on this title, it's almost like a Loki variant, to steal an MCU thing. It is if King would have continued telling his stories for years, it would have grown into this. The current would be a little bit different than our current that we see Tynion do. Thank God. Sorry, Tynion. The future then would grow into something very much different. But also, at some point, I feel like King's telling us he would have retconned the past a little bit as well. I got another follow-up question with this, but am I thinking about this the right way based on how you've been experiencing the book and living with it and reviewing it month in and month out, or every couple months at a time?
Yeah, I think there's the past where he's throwing in stuff, and that's usually you see Catwoman in her black costume. Then you have the alternate present where Bruce has got the belts on his leg and the blue eyes, and lenses, Selina's got a gray suit, kind of as a nod to the animated series look. And then we've got the future where Bruce is dead. Catwoman is now very, very rich with an interesting costume when she decides to don it too. Right. And her and Bruce's daughter is Batwoman to Commissioner Grayson. Absolutely. So it's three different touch points, and King chooses to use a weird mixture of stuff that he did in his Batman run, but now it's blended in with animated series continuity. Mm-hmm. We've seen, obviously the Phantasm, but in the first issue we had a character from the Underdwellers.
Right, that's right.
There's a nod to the Gray Ghost. Yep. In one of the posters, so he's throwing in a whole bunch of different things. In one of the issues, I think it's 6, Joker is wearing his Christmas with the Joker outfit.
With the Joker outfit, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to ask you about this too, and you know what? Maybe since we're kind of sharing some general thoughts, my thought was we could kind of talk about the narrative across these first 4 stories first, and then get into these bits. But this actually feels pretty good, and then we can talk about sort of where the storyline has progressed itself. The reason I say that is you're bringing up some things that really stick out to me around animated series influence, King sort of influencing himself with his own time on the title. But then are you guys picking up just like a ton of Burton influence mixed in this thing?
There's some like Burton quotes, like in the Penguin has like a Burton movie quote like regurgitated, and obviously the future Penguin in this series looks a lot like DeVito's Penguin.
Yeah,
too.
Penguin in the future has aged into DeVito's Penguin with the ginormous beak and the whole thing. Also,
he just doesn't have the duck.
Yeah, he gave him they gave him like the luscious Christmas gift pack line. Like he literally has that in one of the issues.
I think it's issue number 6. Yeah, Joy to the World. We see Selena and Helena having dinner across this very elongated table.
Yeah.
One where maybe a table so long someone would have to stand up and pick up the salt and walk it over to pass the salt. It's straight out of 89. So it feels like King here, and then obviously, Clayman in the art are sort of just kind of getting to pick and choose from whatever they want to. What are their influences? Javi, Batman 66 feels like I can't put my finger on it in quite the same way, but it feels like it's in there someplace. And maybe I'm sort of getting like the aroma wafts of 66 from the relationship of Catwoman and Joker, because nothing in post-crisis history really gives us this tight relationship between the two in the same way. And my reference points are probably strongest for like the way those two were kind of buddy partners in crime in the 66 series. But that just might be what's hitting in my brain. I don't know what you guys think.
I think that's fair. There's a point where Batwoman goes in and is interrogating all of the rogues gallery, and they touch upon how all the criminals used to kind of be like a fraternity. They were friends. They would hang out at a bar, which brings to mind the Almost Got Him episode from the animated series.
Mm-hmm.
But it carries over, like you're saying, that dynamic of, Catwoman, Joker, Penguin, and Riddler.
The movie, 66 movie. So it's great because, in the mix with all those things, you do get flavors of King's Run. The obvious one we touched on this last time, but for listeners that are maybe just picking up on this episode and will go back and listen to the first one, feel free to pause and do those in the correct order. I'm not going to have my feelings hurt if you do that. Come back to us later. But King uses one of his favorite narrative devices, and that is telling stories, introducing stories through songs everybody knows and loves. Obviously, we have been going with the Christmas theme throughout these issues.
Every issue. We're gonna run out of songs.
Oh man, I have been like kind of.
He's gonna get to a Weird Al parody. He's gonna run out of Christmas songs.
Where are we going next? Like, we're gonna get some like deep cut Lutheran hymnal tunes out of this bad boy. Like, I don't know where we're going here. But King loves doing that, and some of which in here feel a bit tongue-in-cheek. Oh, come all ye faithful in issue 7 seemed like they were doing some double entendre.
I was gonna say, that was a little cheeky there.
And others are just sort of thematic in a nice way to sort of give us some visuals, with some text box, so it's not just plain, and you're moving the story along in this sort of advent calendar opening couple page spread device that they're doing in each issue. So you kind of get all that stuff. It's really cooking up into this unique stew of, to recap, animated series, Burton universe, King's own stuff on the title, Batman 66, and then whatever else kind of feels like he wants to go with it, which is it's got to be very liberating. And I can understand entirely, while the creative process was going on, why this was a likely lift and shift from main continuity over to Black Label. Is there anything else, Javi or Ryan? Feel free to answer, Ryan. I'm throwing a lot of stuff to Javi as the guy that gets to write the reviews. Any particular strengths that this book has, or that the Black Label title or imprint lends to this book that we might not see if this were, published kind of in main house DC?
Yeah, I don't think, a normal monthly Batman book would have a cat eating a penguin and you getting to see the results on a full page spread.
Like anatomically correct look inside this penguin's throat.
Yeah, that was unexpected. So
oh my gosh. That was
Yeah,
really
but
something.
yeah, I think I mean it surely gives him some more leeway. And what's cool for me is that I wasn't the biggest fan of King's Run in general, but this series so far has kind of retroactively improved that for me, because not all the way, but like in a lot of ways, because it is all born from that. And the relationship with Catwoman and Joker you were talking about, like they refer back to like, oh, remember that time in the church, the first time you got married, like
Yeah.
for the first wedding or whatever, I slit your throat then, like, so they get to call back for that kind of stuff, which is cool. And when I talk about it improving, it gives better context to some of the, like the other annuals King did, like the one Batman annual King did, where it shows Batman in the future and what happens and all that. And like, oh, well, that's this future. And you get to see kind of more stuff. And there's just more context for it. And it gives a lot of cool opportunities to see characters in a different light. Like you get this, like I've got this issue open to see, it's in part of issue 5. Like you get to see old Catwoman fight old Harley Quinn, and the discussion they have is actually really good. Like there's like there's a line here where Catwoman or Selina's explaining to Harley Quinn that about Batman. He says that Batman was like, he's a man who hid his heroism behind the psychosis of loss because he couldn't ever admit to the arrogant idea that he was a good person. And like, I thought that was a really cool line because it's almost a spiritual like response to the deep down, I'm not a good person, line from Hush. Because a lot of people have issues with that line or think that's just a cool sounding line, but that's not really Batman or whatever. But like, that's a cool like writer response to that. Like, oh yeah, Batman, is a good person, but he doesn't believe it. So that's in his inner monologue, he would say something like that line in Hush. So like, I'm like, wow, it's making King's earlier run better, and it's like making Hush better too. Like, oh wow, like I wasn't expecting that. So there's a lot of cool things that King's taking advantage of here in the writing.
Yeah, totally. And Javi, I want to get your thoughts on this. I'll say the same thing. When I read some of this stuff, I'm like, you know what? King's Batman run kind of wore on for me. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting tired of this. I'm ready for something different. I would love to sit down and have like a very long conversation with King on where he gets his inspiration, how he sort of digests and reforms ideas into what he puts out there, because he is a philosophical dude. I think sometimes that gets to be a bit much for main title Batman, or what I personally want out of main title Batman, I guess I should say. But you're right on, Haas. Some of this stuff, I'm like, this dude is an intellect. I don't know that I always want an intellect writing Batman. In the same way, I to be quite honest, I got tired of Morrison, and he's an intellect in a different way. I kind of, but now I also complain about Tynan's run. I don't know what I want, guys. But I think you're right on. He picks up these things and digests them and kind of gives you something back that's, deep and enriching, but not like full of itself, I guess, in this. And sometimes I feel like on his run on the main title, it felt a little bit full of himself. That hasn't bled over to this for me. Javi, what do we get out of this format that, we wouldn't have gotten otherwise?
Well, just to touch on what you guys were saying really quick, I feel you both are spot on. When Batman Rebirth relaunched and, King was doing the bi-weekly grind, as those issues came out, I didn't really like them. Detective, ironically enough, with Tynan was my jam there. And
I like Tynan's detective run.
But going back and rereading those stories, when you read them as a whole, and then as you see the whole progress and how every little thing he did wound up having an effect and was put there for a reason, like rereading it in hindsight, it got infinitely better for me. So with this title, like it's been the exact opposite in that I'm loving every issue, even though it's not what I expected or what I would have wanted. I'm just kind of along for the ride and enjoying it. As for the Black Label of it, that's where I'm a little confused. Penguin guts aside, I feel like it's a little watered down for what we were told originally Black Label was going to be. And we had, little Bruce Wayne cause a lot of controversy with Batman Damned.
Right. Dangling vein.
But for
Maybe
Black
swinging.
Label, the characters all swear, but it's all censored.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of that.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of sort of like special characters.
Yeah.
To the point that
it-
sometimes I had to look, and it's the whole word, right? It's not like it's not like the F word where just the U is like a pound symbol or a hashtag for the kids.
It's like the cartoon, like the like the ooga.
Real. I'm like, I don't even know which one they're referencing this time.
Yeah.
And so between like that and the more romantic parts,
issue 7, I almost said episode 7. Issue 7,
Yeah.
lengthy love scene. I don't know how many pages. I have to go back and count. That went on for a while.
So it feels at times that it's kind of like a watered down Black Label. Not that I need it to be like a gritty R to be a good story.
You guys know me.
Yeah, I think he is telling a good story. Yeah. But I think the Black Label just kind of gives it a freedom from continuity, so he can do whatever he wants. He can kill the Joker and it's okay because he's going to go on.
Yeah, you're not erasing him from the other comics. It's just fine. You get to enjoy this for exactly what this creative team wants it to be. It does feel like, though, Javi, the PG-13 Black Label, right? It's like Gray Label or something. Okay, well, let's get into some of the narrative and talk about sort of where these 4 issues of the arc of these 4 issues take us. Javi, if you'd be so kind, the weight isn't all on your shoulders. Obviously, this is 4 issues of comic book storytelling that we're trying to make listenable. But if you could give us the Reader's Digest Cliff Notes version of that, I would love to hear it, and then we can kind of jump in and talk about things that clicked for us as you go.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's challenging about trying to review this book is like when you talk about stuff, do you go chronological? Do you just talk about it as it happens? Or but basically in the past we've got a bomb that's the Joker set underneath an ice rink at Christmas, and he's told Selina about it. And she winds up telling Bruce, hey, this bomb's going to go off in 20 minutes as they're getting ready for a party. So he goes off to stop it, but then he knows that Catwoman has some kind of in with the Joker and she won't tell him. And that leads to her getting just plastered because they have a big fight. And then Joker comes over and helps her decorate her Christmas tree, which just feels really wrong, especially when he puts on Batman's clothes that he has tucked away from when he's hanging out with her. And then it leads to some makeup time. Meanwhile, like in the alternate present,
very gentle way to put it, Javi. Thank you. Just in case we got the kids listening.
Yeah. In the present, Andrea has been killing the Joker's men, trying to get to the Joker, which Batman's got him tucked away for his own safety. And she winds up kidnapping Selina so they can kind of do a hostage exchange. Except Andrea goes kind of a different route and sways Selina to her side that they should kill the Joker. So then they both double cross Bruce and lock him in a bank vault naked. So when he comes to, he's surrounded by the SWAT team and he's got to figure out a way out of it. And in the future, Helena realizes that her mom has killed the Joker, and she's trying to get it out of her, and they wind up fighting crime instead. And Selina puts on not exactly one of her older costumes, but it's similar to her older costume, but not something you would think an older person would want to be wearing, because it's very exposed.
It's very exposed. And I was trying to put my finger on like, what era Catwoman costume is this? And I'm like, I don't think it's anything specific, but it feels like early 50s.
It feels
Catwoman.
like 40s, 50s. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like she's going to have a lot of skin tears by the end of this night is what I'm thinking. Until she finally, confesses to her daughter. So Dick, as the commissioner, has to go to Wayne Manor with a SWAT team
And he's scared to
arrest
do
her.
this. Like he does not
Yeah.
want to do this by himself because Selena, even at her aged state, they know if she wanted to take us out, she could do it like Bruce used to be able to do it.
Oh, yeah. She's the most dangerous woman alive, as far as I'm concerned in this book.
Right.
And she goes peacefully, though. And meanwhile, like, you have this great scene of Helena talking to her father's ghost, looking at his old costume. She's like, what did you see in this woman? Like, she's nothing like us. You know, how did you marry her? How could you make this work? And it's just like so much you want to know about all three of these characters. You know, what moments did we not see? And where we're at right now is a very interesting crossroads, because Selena in the alternate present has been betrayed by the Phantasm and is absconded with the Joker. And in the future, Selena's planning her own little jailbreak in a method much like her departed husband did in the alternate present.
Javi, you did an amazing job. There's no way I could have done that undertaking. I've got 2 pages of notes of like stuff that I grabbed of like this storyline or this time frame, to be able to run through all of those. Bravo, sir. Excellent job. Let's I want to talk through some of those points, and Haas, get your thoughts on them.
Yep.
Let's go a little bit issue by issue, and we'll jump around time frames. I'll tell you what, man, Javi, I don't envy you as the reviewer for this book, because it's got to be tough to think about, all right, where were these threads, especially when you have 2 or 3 months in between, because they essentially took the summer off on this title, right? Like school's out for summer. So you're always kind of experiencing every issue as this thing. And even the way, Clayman, and then there's a jump in issue 7 to new artist. Liam Sharp is on the title, new to the title, not new to art. He's pretty good. Where they don't really delineate really clearly what time frame or what sort of time,
and it can happen in the same page too.
In the same dang panel, like from one panel to the next. And there's, in my opinion, Clayman is a little bit, he gives you some more clues. It's a little bit easier to follow the jumps, but they will happen from one panel to the next on the same page, and you have to stay sharp, which kind of lends to that mystery. Your brain's always trying to solve something. Yeah. So it's almost
that's
like
King's writing. That's this shtick for everything he ever writes, and you have to know that going in.
He puts you in detective mode.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's the kind of thing where I'm like, I just want to wait till the end of this and then have somebody do an editor's cut where they just rearrange everything in sequential order, because the stories are written for that. They're written for that. Like, we're going to show you a snapshot, but not show you the full picture, and make you wonder why this is happening and everything. But in true Tom King fashion, I'm sure we'll get to the 12th issue, and the last panel of the last page will be like, oh crap, I have to reread the whole thing all over again to really understand it,
Which is great. I love when the thing that he does do well is plant seeds and then doesn't forget where he planted them.
Right.
A lot of writers will put the breadcrumbs out there and then totally forget they left the trail, or they decide, at some other point to go in a different direction.
Totally.
He
knows what you can't do this kind of writing if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, you have to have it built out. You have to. Issue 4 is Hark the Herald Angel Sings. That's sort of King's en route to the story. Javi, that's where you mentioned the bomb has been planted in the ice. I wanted to get your thoughts on this, because it was a portion of this book that really stood out. Batman is angry at Catwoman to some level, that she's been like still palling around with the Joker, even though he's this murderer and a monster, and they have this thing going, and it seems like they're not quite sure how to put into words what they have, but he's mad at her, and he finds her at the end. This is towards the end of the title, of the issue, and wants to know where he is. And she kind of tells him to like F off or whatever, series of special characters she uses. And he's hurt and she's hurt. And she's like, what are you going to do? Come and get me and beat me and hang me and threaten me like you do all your other lovers? And then she jumps off and swings away, and Batman's standing there under the moonlight with his head like hanging. And I was like, what? Like what?
Well,
I mean, because the dialogue and the emotion and like where these two people are in conflict was so strong. I didn't know what she meant by like all your other lovers. And I haven't seen us later on. I think it's issue 6 where Andrea and Selena are talking about what it's like that they were both, lovers of Bruce at some point. I wasn't sure if that was picking up on that, and she was referencing Phantasm already back then, but it didn't make sense to me. But I thought it was really well. It was a very effective series of panels and dialogue, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. Did that stand out to you like it stood out to me?
not necessarily in that way. I took it as two people where Selena feels like she's not good enough to be with Batman because he's, this paragon of virtue, and she's a criminal, and she's feeling hurt, and they know each other really well. So she's lashing out at him to hurt him in a way that only she knows how. And because she feels like he's better than her. And that's like this whole thing, is that she doesn't feel like she's good enough. And when she's talking like all your other lovers, that's not necessarily like a Julie Madison or a Vicky Vale reference. I took it more as Batman's in love with Gotham, and there seems to be like a love-hate with just the Rogues Gallery in general. Like they all kind of worship him, and have that thing. It's like Batman and the Joker, like how some authors like to play around
psychosexual
with, like,
sort of like, are we enemies? Are we, I left a part out of the quote. I've got it here. She says, "You need to know where he is. Come and get me and beat me and hang me and threaten me, scare me to death and tell me how low I am and how high you are, like you do to all your other lovers." And I'm like, damn, King, I might give you a hard time sometime, but that's a well-written series of sentences right there, my man.
So because she made all those references to like hanging people upside down, just kind of like I took it as like any criminal that he comes across is
treat
kind of
me like any other low life thug, she's basically asking him to put her in it's really kind of Catwoman coming to terms with the fact that she's a crappy person sometimes, right? And that's something that she continues on. We get like 2 issues of drunk Catwoman after this, so she's really coming to terms with herself.
They touched on that with the Catwoman Harley Quinn fight in the future too. We're like, is she too good to be bad or too bad to be good? That whole thing. Yeah.
And the fact that she thinks that Harley is a better person than she is, where as far as we know, this Catwoman has only killed the Joker. God knows how many people, Harley has aided and abetted the Joker with killing.
And allowed Phantasm to kill at least one person that we know of. But you guys are, you're doing the segue for me. That brings me to issue 5, entitled Jingle Bells. What definitely stood out to me, we touched on a couple times already, was this battle between aged Selena and aged Harley. In the big conversation piece, and what comes out of this that stood out to me, Haas, we've talked about Harley quite a bit in the past through different various iterations, whether it was in the group text or on different podcasts or whatever else. The depiction of Harley in different mediums, be it the movies or the comic books or the animated series or the Batman animated series where she was born. But what Catwoman has to say, what Selena says about Harleen here is, essentially, you're too, very similar to what we said she says about Bruce at one point, you're too good to actually be bad. Like, that's why you've had to struggle and chase Joker and you've been obsessed with him, because you're actually too good to be bad. And I am too bad to actually be good. The question I wanted to ask you about this is this sort of saying out loud what DC's been doing with Harley over the last 10, 15 years? Like, is it really putting that fine a point on it, or is it something more subtle and I'm just not getting it myself?
I mean, I think it definitely strikes to the core of the characters. That's kind of what King's thing is like, I'm gonna make a 3-word statement that gets to the heart of the character and flip it around and make it. I mean, I think you're onto something there. It makes sense to me.
And then, I mean, and then, you know, to be in this future, even with this, you know, more elderly Selena still dealing with this questioning herself of, am I bad or am I good? It feels like she's kind of answered the question for herself at this point. You know, she's very much in control of the situation. You know, Helena comes in, the house is a mess, Harley's tied up, and she's like, that was kind of fun. You know, like the world's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, issue 6 is Joy to the World. This is, we spent a whole issue in past Selena with super drunk Selena. This is super hungover Selena. Javi, you told us about her decorating the Christmas tree. I agree with you. Man, it felt really unsettling. Like, I don't know, like if you're just hanging out in the room with like a tiger or like a gorilla that could just rip your arms off and beat you with them, like seeing her just kind of lounge around on this couch with the Joker, who is, we know, is a homicidal maniac. And she's even at one point like, don't go out and buy ornaments because I know you're probably just going to want to kill a whole bunch of people on the way there and back. And I don't want to deal with that today. Like, you're hanging out and lounging around with a psychopath. Very, very interesting choice. And the key thing where we kind of saw what stood out to me in this sort of like what Selena thinking through, and you guys will probably, I'm sure it resonated for you as well, because I think they sort of highlighted this, is when Joker's about to leave the apartment and she almost like desperately asks him like, am I a good person? And Joker turns and looks at her and is like, you're asking me? Not everything has to be funny, but that certainly is. And I was like, how, I mean, Javi, did this seem, it almost seemed, is it the fact that she just was through this giant fight with Bruce that has put her in this place? Plus she's hungover, and I don't know about you guys, but if I ever have a little bit too much to drink, sometimes I'm emotional or on edge the next day. But like, she seems like she's so full of self-doubt and desperate for reassurance that she's even willing to go to the Joker for it here. It seemed a bit out of character to me, or do you think that fit in? Was that intentional, Javi?
No, I think that it's intentional. I don't necessarily feel it's out of character because we've seen them be compatriots of some kind throughout this whole series so far in the past.
Sure.
And she doesn't seem to have any other social circles other than these two very different men. And she's mad at one right now and doesn't feel good enough for him. So this is the only ear that she has. I can't see her, talking up Two-Face about it. And it's kind of vague if Harley's even around yet at this point in their history.
It seems like before, right? To me,
it feels like before. It's an interesting contrast because she obviously has those issues in the past, but presumably she gets over them at some point and they get married. But like Bruce was like her lightning rod, the thing that kept her grounded. And now that he's dead, she doesn't have to try and achieve anymore. She doesn't have to strive to be a better person because he's gone, and now she can do whatever she wants and he's not going to know to be disappointed in her.
She's
and
almost like
where this
pure
motivation
in the future, right? Like she is like sort of this self-realized, like full embodiment of what I want to do, I'm going to do. I have almost no limitations. I've sort of like ascended past this doubt I've had about myself in the future to being almost as like this agent of judgment that we see Phantasm. Like Selena in some ways in the future kind of starts to play that role, right away with taking out Joker and really not giving any F's about where I am and what I'm going to do. I've got all the money. I've got all the skills, like try and stop me. I don't have the doubts I had as my younger self.
And there's the question too of what drove her to that point, because obviously he's done.
That's the key mystery of the book.
What's
like
happened?
What happened to Bruce, or what
he's done horrible things throughout this series, be it the family with antlers stuck to their heads or the Santa shoved down the chimney. I mean, these are all horrific things that, would get a normal person the death penalty. But what was it? Was it Andrew Beaumont that seeing him get murdered, that pushed her over the edge. Like, I don't think we've gotten there yet.
No.
To what the thing was that was so bad that she promised to kill him at some point.
Well, we're going to find out as this thing keeps moving on. The last episode or last issue, I don't know. I think it's because it really feels like so much animated series to me. I want to call all of these episodes. The last issue we'll touch on before we wrap here is issue number 7, new artist, Liam Sharp, obviously a very different artistic style. Line work is much different, much grittier. Transitions are a little bit harder to follow. But I mean, very talented, very skilled, just a very different stylistic choice.
Yeah. Can we get into that right now before we talk about the story part?
Yeah, please do.
So I had a really hard time with this. When I heard the announcement, I love Liam Sharp. His Batman, Wonder Woman, Brave and the Bold series is magnificent to behold. Like, I want an absolute edition just to admire the craft he puts into the art. The amount of detail he puts into his Green Lantern is phenomenal. And he's got a very distinct style. Totally. But I haven't read Reptilian yet, but I've thumbed through it, and it seems like he's taken a Dave McKean influence.
Is there a little Freddie Williams III mixed in there, like just a touch?
I'm not quite seeing that, but I'm seeing a lot of Bill Sienkiewicz.
Okay,
like a Mandrake.
That
I was
works.
seeing like a Mandrake.
Yeah,
like a Mandrake. Yeah, that's a good comparison. Too.
I was seeing like Tom Mandrake smushed with like a rough Neil Adams kind of.
It's weird because I can see Sharp, like the way he draws figures and faces, like it's there.
Dude, his
but
Batman
it's also
is
someone.
Huge.
It's also someone else in there too, and it's weird that they would pick him, someone that I don't think King has worked with,
and so divergent from the previous 6 issues.
It doesn't fit in when you get this collected.
Oh my gosh, that was my thought.
Going to be a nightmare. And it's like someone like Michael Janin, who's worked on Batman with King before, whose sensibilities artistically seem to be more in line with Man. It would have made it feel more cohesive, and this just feels completely out of place. Even though I love the art in this issue, I think it's really powerful.
Oh, there's some great stuff in it.
Yeah.
But it almost feels like it'd be better served with, not quite like a DC house style, but sort of like a, something from the family tree of, Jim Lee, Jason Fabok. I never say it right. Peter. Who else am I thinking of? But that very like clean lines.
Yeah.
Like Mark Silvestri from back in the day. Like if they got like kind of more of an Image 90s influence than the classic, like any of that stuff would have fit better. This was a bit jarring. But I'm with you, Javi. I still like, as a standalone piece of art, standalone book, I'm like, this looks like a great issue. My mind went where you did right away. When I get this collected, it's going to be a jarring transition.
And when it was coming time to write up a review, it's like, I don't know, how to feel about it, because I think skill, it's an A all the way, but like, it doesn't feel like it belongs with this title the way it's already been established for half its run.
Yeah. Haas, I know you did more of a catch up in the recent past.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you, and did it differ in any ways?
I mean, when I got to it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a different artist, but it, because it is the most recent one, like it didn't bother me that much. It did make me pause, and it did make me be like, oh, this is different, but then I was able to keep going and keep running with it. And I think maybe just because of this issue, it feels like the content of the story, it almost feels like it might be kind of a pause in the story, a break in the story, because it seems like the scenes are longer in this one, the way that they are broken up. And
I mean, the 5 pages of getting it on we get to open this one.
Yeah. And I just look at I got the whole grid view of all the pages, and the coloring is very moody, very somber compared to some of the other ones. So I think it's definitely tonally fits as an aside almost. And what's interesting though is like, when people like Grant Morrison have their giant runs, and they know like, oh, this issue is going to be like a different artist or something, or that's not the main person in the book, they'll usually lean into that and make it like super obvious, or make the story tailored to that artist. It doesn't really feel like that for this issue, so that might I don't know if that will help this or hurt it in the long run. I think it'll be interesting in context, because we might not get the same artists for the rest of the series, right? Like, is that how many more have been announced? I mean, there's still
he's back for 8.
Yeah,
and then I think 9 is back to Man. I think he just has a 2-issue break.
A 2-issue break. So
at least it's not going to be a weird one-off, and it's 2 consecutive chapters. So maybe when it's all done, it'll feel
and maybe they feel like brother and sister.
It'll be interesting, like if he like this experience with this issue, if they were able to make it a little bit more cohesive with the next one, or maybe this one and the next one will feel more of a piece. I don't know. But it didn't really bother me too much in the grand scheme of things. But I will be interested to see get back on, not back on track, but back to the regular artist, and see if they can finish it out.
Well, for the last 3 issues, I've kind of told you and asked for your thoughts on the thing that stood out to me the most. I'd love for you two to share with me, of issue 7, what jumped out to you the most, what had the biggest impact, or maybe if it was a head scratcher, but sort of what did you walk away thinking about at the conclusion of issue 7?
I thought I was interested to see how some of the things resolved more in this issue than in the bigger picture, because I was like, okay, Bruce is in the bank vault, he's naked, like the cops are coming, how's he going to get out? So I was more interested in, like, it felt like more like a hardcore episode of the animated series, right? Like, okay, this is the cool situation he's in this month, like what's going to happen? And this is something I've never seen Batman have to figure out before. So that kind of stuff was cool. And I'm happy to, and I know at this point, like, the big things aren't going to get resolved until like the last issue. So I'm just kind of along for the ride at the moment. But I'm really, really curious to see like what, Catwoman went peacefully, but surely, I mean, she's clearly got a plan. There's more upper paw or
up her heel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Haas, if I were to pick out like one of the things for me, it would be that scene. It felt like the most Batman thing, and he wasn't even in the suit. But
it wasn't in any suit.
It wasn't in any suit.
Other than
he had a naked
suit.
dude in handcuffs with a needle shoved up.
He was in his Batman damned suit.
Yeah. Damned alternate suit.
Take that, suit. Black Label.
But to like have, like a needle or a little pick, shoved into the flesh of his heel that he gets out, unlocks the cuffs, cuts his forehead to bleed and cover his face with blood to disguise his identity.
The blood man protocol is probably the plan, one of the plans he has, like a really bad contingency plan.
Oh my gosh. I was like, this is insane. This is so Batman. This is maybe one of the most Batman things I've seen on this series so far. I loved it. Javi, what's yours?
I think it's tied into that moment. We always talk about Batman and Joker being yin and yang, 2 sides of the same coin. And I feel like this issue really puts forward that maybe it's not Batman and Joker. Maybe it's Batman and Catwoman, because she's dealing like, the whole thing about, am I a good person who does bad? Like we've talked about that, but the fact that she mirrors her husband's escape from, 30 years ago with the hidden pin in her heel, and she's clearly got some kind of a plan. That's Batman. Victory is in the preparation, and she clearly has that. She's, if it's possible, she's more of an even darker reflection of Bruce Wayne.
That's a great way to put it.
And Helena's like the distillation of that, because she's, the child of both of them.
Yeah, that's really sharp. I like that a lot. The one other thing I walked away thinking about, speaking of Helena and Bruce, is that scene with her talking to the cowl and the suit, of her deceased father in the cave, and like trying to find answers to what he saw in Selena that made him unable to leave her, unable I mean, he says in this issue, like, we can't do this anymore. And immediately, sorry, that's actually in 6. And immediately they start like making out again. Like he's like, I can't quit you, like it's like, what was it? Like, why did you choose her? She's so different from us. It's this emotional pleading to understand her mother from the one person who could like give her the answers. And he's gone, and he's the most important person to us, most likely as the reader as well. So that emotional tension worked really well for me. Haas, issues 1 through 7, give me a grade.
I'll give it a good B, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, it reads really nicely as a binge. I'll say that. I'm glad that I didn't have to go every single month through and wait on them. And although the 3 time periods are a little confusing, knowing that they're going to be confusing, knowing that this is a Tom King Batman book, that you just kind of need that disclaimer, and then you'll enjoy it. And I've been able to enjoy it because it is Black Label. It's not like the monthly continuity. I can just kind of pick it up and be like, enjoy it on its own merits, which is pretty liberating, to be honest. And so yeah, like it's got a lot of cool elements. I like seeing all of the points, and I want more Phantasm. I think Phantasm is cool, and I think for that being like the marquee like thing of this series, it's not really about Phantasm. Phantasm is more like a plot device at this point than all the other mystery type stuff. But having the new Batwoman is something I wasn't expecting to be as big a part of this series as it was. So I'll be interested to see if there will be any other major like lore type additions or surprises for the rest of the books, and I'm sure that there will be. So yeah, I'll give it a solid B. It's worth reading, and I'm excited to keep going.
Cool. Javi, where are you at?
I'm more at the solid A point for me. I think just Man's art is just impeccable. It draws me in, and I see where Haas is coming from, and I echo a lot of those points there. Like I said earlier, there's things I expected or wanted from this book that I haven't gotten. Like Phantasm disappears practically for a good portion of the issue, or for the story so far, and even Batman doesn't feel like a main character in this book.
But you hit it on the head earlier when you said it's Catwoman, Shadow of the Bat, or Catwoman, the flutter of bat wings, the ramifications of Batman in some way. Like, terrible title, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's just that I feel like King really
Cat to the
nails
Cat to the future. Oh, Haas, trademark.
There we go.
Cat, you'll get the Twitter account right now.
That'll be the rename for the Absolute Edition. I just think he nails the characterization, and that's what makes this story so compelling for me. It's not giving me what I want, but it's giving me something else that I'm really enjoying. And it's not just that he's writing an interesting Selena, it's everyone else making observations in the story about other characters and about Batman. I wasn't too fond of how he depicted Harley in issue 5. I felt it was kind of like a regression for her character. Just looking at Joker as her man, and that's not something we've seen from her in a long time now in her own book. Ever since she's had the New 52 title, it's been distancing herself and standing on her own and nothing to do with him. So like that felt a little weird to me. But like other than that, like it's something I'm looking forward to every month, and I can't necessarily say that about the main title right now.
Oh, geez, man.
Unfortunately. So
I'm right with you. I mean, unfortunately, but I'm right with you on both those points. Excuse me. So the first one is that when I was reading issue 5, I believe, where the big battle between Selena and Harley is, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right for Harley. Like, she's way too obsessive and like way too much fixated on you killed my man. And then it salvaged me with that one little line where she's like, before I had the chance. And I was like, ooh, okay. All right. You got it. And Javi, again, I'm right with you. It's an A for me too. maybe an A-. I could quibble there, but it's very, very, very strong. In fact, this book and the Future State Batman Dark Detective are my favorite Batman things that I've read in
This year?
2021. Yeah. I don't think it gets better than either of those for me. And that speaks as highly about these titles as it does not speak highly about what I didn't mention. So it's not just like the other stuff was bad, so this rises to the top. No, this is quite good.
Yeah.
And the other stuff I'm not into.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. It's an A. Sorry, I cut you off. So if you had a final thought there.
I will say it's like this definitely is like Tom King is known for his, like, I don't know what the word is like his genre breaking, unconventional type of storytelling. And this totally his deconstruction stuff. And this totally fits the bill. And it's a different kind of storytelling that you don't see executed on a monthly basis or on a normal regular superhero fare. So like this is definitely telling something different, telling something interesting. And this is the same kind of stuff he did in his normal run, but maybe for me, knowing that this is a finite 12 issue thing is got me more invested, because with his previous run on the main title, I'm like, what is this? When is this going to end? Yeah. But this one has a shtick. It's been sticking to it for the most part, and it's pretty compelling. So
cool.
Well, and another thing too is, like, we're all dads. Our time is at a premium, like our downtime. So for me, when I write a review, I like to at least read it twice before I, like, once is just to enjoy it, and the second time is to kind of look at it critically and what do I want to talk about. Like, this is a story that I've read multiple times already, and because of the gap, sometimes I've had to go back and read stuff again before I start the current issue. And then today I binged all 7, so I don't even know how many times I read issue 1 by this point. But my enjoyment of it hasn't waned in all those different rereads, and I'm enjoying going back to doing that. And that's not something I have a lot of time to do. Like, it's usually like I read it once, it goes in the bag and board, and then I don't see it for a long time. That's just the way life is for me these days. So the fact that I'm going back to it over and over again says something about how it's reaching me as a fan of the characters.
Yeah, I'll pony up some big bucks for a prestige format collected edition on this one. I can already tell, and I don't normally do that. I'm a paperback trade guy.
Yeah, your bookshelf space is a little limited for the hardback.
I know. I might have to boot some of the boys' books up to their bedrooms and reclaim some real estate in the Grev library. All right, boys. Wonderful conversation. A pleasure to talk with both of you. Let's get some plugs in. Let the listeners know where they can find more of your wonderful thoughts and feelings and ruminations and criticalities and everything else. Javi, let them know first, please, sir.
Oh man. First and foremost, you could find me at BOF as a contributor. I obviously review the aforementioned Batman Catwoman, but you can also read my thoughts on Batman The Adventures Continue Season 2, the current Robin series, and Superman 78. And then elsewhere, I occasionally podcast, help out with the SpidermanCrawlspace.com, sometimes filling in on the main show, but mainly doing the Spider Satellites Patreon show once a month. I occasionally review James Bond comics for the JamesBondDossier.com. So I'm working on reviewing James Bond Agent of Spectre right now, which just wrapped up. And they have a new miniseries coming out soon because we have a new movie finally after 6 very long years. And on Twitter, I am at Javi True. On Instagram, I am The Bond Is Not Enough, because I don't just love James Bond. I love Batman, The Flash, Spider-Man, Superman, you name it. So I think those are all the places. I'm not quite Peter Vera, but I'm getting there.
I don't think I'll ever have a list as long as Peter's, and I'll never be able to ramble it off that smoothly. Haas, you've got a couple more things than I do, thanks to your Mario Brother Madness too.
true.
So
Yeah.
tell the people about it, and I'll be judging you on the Peter scale for how well you get it all out.
Pete's recording a podcast and doing a social hour vlog at the same time. And I don't know how he does it, but he's like, I'm in 2 places at once. Beat that, you know.
Yeah,
But,
and he's smoking a full rack of ribs at the same time.
and he's smoking. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Of course, the SMB stands for Super Mario Brothers, as in the Super Mario Brothers the movie archive website, which is also on Twitter at SMB Movie. If you follow us over there, we've done all kinds of crazy stuff this year. You know, getting the extended cut of that movie released, which is just ridiculous. And today I'm quite proud. I made one of those summoning circle memes out of Super Mario Brothers movie merchandise. I'm way, that's like the most favorite thing I've done today other than this podcast. So go to that Twitter at SMB Movie and look at that, and hopefully maybe that'll summon some good Mario stuff in the future. I don't know, probably not. But do that. And of course we've got our new BOF satellite show that's launched over, and you can follow that on Twitter at BOF show. I'm in the first episode, and allegedly I'm supposed to be on another episode at some point talking about, you know, the Matrix. We're going to do a couple of episodes focused on
very nice.
The Matrix.
Nice.
So Rick is recruited me for those, and that'll be pretty fun. So
I can't wait for that. Always fun conversations. I had a great conversation with you guys, and you know me, listeners, I like to keep the conversation going. You can follow, first of all, follow at the Batman on Film. That's going to give you the news feed for the websites, any new articles that get posted, any announcements. That's going to give you everything you need to know about the happenings over at BOF. If you want to keep chatting it up around Batman, there's like 2 new He-Man cartoons that came out this year. It's football season. You know, the Minnesota Vikings, not a great start, but you know, I still believe. Superman, you know, you want to ask me about what it's like raising 4 crazy kids, whatever, like all that stuff. I'd love to chat it up. Follow me at GARRETWATO. That's at Garret Wato. If there's anything you'd like to hear about on the show, if you'd like to leave a review, that's cool too. Email me at garret.grev@batmanonfilm.com. That is GARRET.GREV@batman-on-film.com. And listeners, if I can leave you with one thing, please remember this, very, very important. It's not who you are underneath, but it's what you do that defines you. Thank you for listening.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jet and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.